Hello and welcome back to the course. In this course, we would understand what we need to get started on learning Solidity. First and foremost, the main thing we need is an IDI, and we will be using Remix IDI. This is the Remix IDI. So I will just show you some basic parts of the Remix IDI. First, you have your file explorer. This is where your codes are stored. Then you can create a new folder using new workspace. You could delete, rename, and do all sorts of other functions, but the main thing you need to know is how to delete and rename. You can delete by clicking delete, or you rename by clicking rename, then changing up the name. Very simple. Then the next thing you need to know is your search. So say you have a big work folder and there's a lot of files and you need to get a file, you can just come here, search the file, and if the name exists, you'll see the name right here. You see the name right here. So that's it. Then you have your compiler. So in this part of the Remix idea, this is where you set what version your code is being compiled to. So you will see that here it's set to 0.18. This is the standard that I like to use because it's one of the latest, it's the second latest version. And you want to stick to the latest. In this course, we'll be sticking to 0.8 and above. So anything from 0.8 you could use. And the reason you don't use less than 0.8 is because there are breaking changes with each iteration. So it started from 0.1 and has gotten to 8. So each iteration from 0.1, then there's a breaking changes that if a code that works on 0.1 might not work on 0.2, and like that until you get to 0.8. So we are sticking to 0.8. You want to make sure your code is compatible to the latest version of Solidity. So the next thing we have is our deploy and run section. In this section, we can set the environment we want to deploy our code to. For example, this is a virtual machine. That means it's hosted on, this blockchain is hosted on Remix server and we run it on our system using the browser. So you can also use the main blockchain, which is using MetaMask, to connect to maybe the Ethereum blockchain or Solana blockchain or Polygon blockchain. For example, you can do that using this section, and you do that from the environment. You can use MetaMask to connect, you can use Wallet Connect to connect. Then you can also get your own service provider, your own RPC node, then connect directly using one of these. Then there are also various other virtual machines. You have the mainnet fork, which is like a copy of the mainnet. You have this Sephora testnet fork, Grilling, and a lot more. Then you can also set up your provider using Ganesh. Ganesh is a local blockchain that you can run on your system, and you can connect it to this Remix IDE. And they also provide you with a lot of accounts for your testing. They provide up to more than 10 accounts for your testing. So let's get started with the rest of the resources we need to know. We need to know about the Solidity documentation. This is the most reliable way to get information on Solidity. Like I always specify, to learn any piece of code, you need to know the concepts. Then you need to practice it. So knowing the concept and practicing, you have to do those two things, asynchronously. And the documentation will give you a lot of insight into the concepts. You can see the documentation. You have a get started section of the documentation. And this is all you need to know on the documentation. Then the next resources you need is your tutorial points. The Solidity section of tutorial point. This is website. Every link that I'm going to be sharing will be listed on the description of this video. So let me introduce Solidity. Solidity is a contract-oriented high-level programming language for implementing smart contracts. So smart contract is what you use to create a set of functions that runs automatically without the involvement of humans. So it runs by itself. Solidity is highly influenced by C++, Python, JavaScript, and it is statically typed language, support inheritance libraries, and other user-defined types. So we'll be learning about types, what statically typed language means, what inheritance means, what library means, and user-defined data also need. We learn that over time. So you need to get here, and you could follow up on this course from here, just using this tutorial, and you could follow up on this course. We'll also be using this Solidity by example for some of the lessons we'll be taking. So back to Remix. So we need to implement a test code for us to get a bit of an understanding of how Solidity works. So the test code we are going to be running will be a simple hello world test code that takes a greeting, then outputs the message to us. So this smart contract will just take a greeting and output the message. So to set up a smart contract, you have to go to create file. Then remember, all Solidity code must end with .so. So our contract name will be called greeting, and it will end with .so. So our contract effectively works right now. So every smart contract must have an SPDX license identifier. I generally use MIT, but you could use whatever you want. Then it must have a pragma line. Okay. They just auto-completed my code. But basically what you do now, once you have your pragma Solidity, you have to specify the version. And we use this symbol to simplify from this version, I'm going to specify and above. So 0.8.9 and above. This is the version we are going to be using. So to start a contract, you put in the contract keyword. I'm going to call my contract greeting. So remember, Solidity is a curly brace language, which means every code must be blocked inside the curly braces. So our contract has a message, which is going to be the message we are going to set and output later on. So it's a string, which is words basically. We'll be getting more into what are variable types. Function, we call this function set message. Takes a string, store it on memory. There are different ways to store a string in Solidity. We have your memory, your storage, and your core data. We'll get into this when we get deep into the course. Set our access modifier to public. We have two types of access modifier, public and private. Public means anyone that has our contract address could be able to utilize this function. While private means only this contract can utilize the function. There are examples where we need only our contract to utilize the function. We also have external and internal. They are basically the same thing, but they work more on an inheritance basis when you are inheriting from other contract. We'll get into this as we go on this course. So we set our message to message. Remember, you must include your semicolon at the end of every line. Get message. This function will be a function that shows us our message. It will not take any parameter, so we will not set a parameter. Then remember to set your access modifier. Always set your access modifier. Then this function, since it returns a string, we have to set it and set it to view. Since you are going to be looking at it, and it's going to show us something at the end of the day. We are going to set it to view, then set return, then set it what is going to return, which is a string stored in the memory. Then specify what is being returned. Return message. Okay. So our contract has been completely written, and since we set our compiler to auto-compile, it means our code has already been compiled to 0.8 0.18. So we'll go to deploy. To deploy our contract, since we have no constructor, we just straight up deploy it. Once we deploy it, you will see immediately it's reflected on our deployed contract section. Since we are on a virtual machine, it doesn't take time. But if we are on the test net or a live network, it will take some time. You have to approve a transaction, which we'll be doing sooner. So first and foremost, we have to set our message. I'll set a message called hello. Go to open this up and transact. You will see this green button if it works. This section is our debugging section. It's like a terminal. It shows us if there's an error in our code or if our code works. Press the get message to see the message we set. As you can see, the same thing we set is what we are getting here. You can also set other stuff. Hola. You see, once we transact it and get our message, we're getting what we set here. So that's it for the basics of Solidity. In our next class, we'll be going into more in-depth into structures of a contract, where there will be learning types, how to utilize types, how to start a contract proper. So thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and like so other people will be able to get access to this course for free.